with Julie Oliver in Texas. And tonight we have a similarly exciting candidate. So many people right now are desperate and afraid of what's going to happen. And what's going to happen is what we are going to make happen. And when it comes to the presidential election, there is a lot of concern, and it's legitimate concern about voter suppression and so forth. But one place where we can be pretty sure that we'll have a fair shot at it no matter what has to do with the congressional elections. And I remind you, Congress is a co-equal branch of government. Right now, the Democrats control the House, the Republicans control the Senate. We certainly hope that the Democrats will get control of the Senate this time as well as Democrats keeping the House. But this is the issue. There's blue and then there's blue. There are different shades of blue. So what we need are not just Democrats. We need the kind of progressive Democrats who will make a stand for true fundamental change. Now, some of these candidates are stars. Some of these candidates, there's a lot of chatter about. People are talking about them and going, he's really got something, or she's really got something. And we have brought you people here at the Progressive Candidate Summit, all of whom represent that kind of charisma that has made a lot of people go, that person not only could win the race, but even more importantly, could truly help change America. So I'm excited because tonight I'm going to introduce you to such a one as she, and I love it when it's a she. Someone who, for reasons that you'll understand, particularly has my heart. That has to do with Kara Eastman, and she's running in Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District. I don't know if you spent a lot of time in those states, such as Nebraska, the states of our heartland. I had the opportunity to do so during my presidential campaign, and it was truly inspiring. I also raised my daughter in Michigan, in the Midwest. So this country is so incredible, the different regions and how different regions are there's such a variety of culture, such a variety of ethnicity. But one of the things I've seen everywhere is high intelligence and dignity and decency. And that's what we want to do. We want to harness that intelligence and decency and dignity for political purposes. Now, the man who is now the incumbent, he's been there for 2 sessions, and his name is Don Bacon. And he is a Trump supporter and Trump ally all the way. Trump has supported him, endorsed his candidacy, but we're going to beat him. And Kara Eastman almost beat him last time. And this time the word is she's going to make it, just like Julie Oliver last night. Almost made it last time, gonna make it this time. A lot of times when people run for Congress, you know what they say about the first time? It's like the first starter marriage. Then the second time they come back and they're laying it down in such a way they will make it. The polls are already showing she's ahead, she's slightly ahead. And you're here tonight so that you can hear her and hopefully be inspired by her. And if you are, please donate, because in this last 40 some odd days before the election, it will make all the difference. Who has the money for TV ads? Who has the money for the kinds of on the ground work that will actually raise their visibility to the point where they can take it home on election night? Let me tell you a little something about Kara, and then of course I'll introduce you. She's an MSW in social work. She started Omaha Healthy Kids Alliance, OHKA, OKA, and grew it from a small startup lead poisoning prevention organization to a nationally recognized award-winning nonprofit that has raised more than $13 million to support green, safe, and healthy housing in Omaha. Under Eastman's leadership, OKA has directly served over 4,000 Nebraska families. In the process, she has created dozens of jobs at her nonprofit, within the city government, and through partnerships with the small businesses and contractors she has worked with. She has been a board member of the Nonprofit Association of the Midlands and has served as an appointed member of the Mayor of Omaha's Fair Housing Advisory Board. So hearing all those things, you know why she has my heart. One of the things I feel strongly about is what I see as a collective neglect on the part of our political establishment of the deep needs of America's children that are untended to, having not only with their biological and their cultural needs, but also with very serious environmental dangers, such as the lead poisoning that Kara has proven that she has already worked on in Omaha. This is the kind of person we need to send to Washington. If you don't like what's going on, send new people. We act like it's a little more complicated than that. It's really not. I understand that the Trump allies have tremendous corporate donors, and he has all the GOP donors working for him. Fortunately, this time, Kara does have the DCCC that's behind her. Good, thank you very much, guys. And we need to take this home. All of us are necessary. So once again, please go to her website. Let me make sure I have it right. Go to her website, eastmanforcongress.com. If you like what you hear, please push the donate button, even if it's $5. If you just, sometimes people think, well, my $5, my $10, what difference could I make? But when you look at all the thousands of people who are watching, if you like what you hear, put your energy behind it, put your money behind it, even if it's $5. Let's help this woman win. I'm so happy to introduce you to Kara Eastman. Kara, come on and join us. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you, and I know a lot of people are. As I said, there's a lot of conversation about you. People are eyeing your race. People know that you're one of the women coming up and really laying it down in some important ways, and who would take your spirit and your consciousness and your obvious ability to Washington. I have a lot of interest in what takes people to the point where they're ready to run for office. I see the work that you've done with your nonprofit, with health and safety for people in Omaha, et cetera. But what was the thing that actually took you to the place where you knew you were going to take on what is clearly at times a brutal process of actually running for Congress?
In 2016, my mother was diagnosed for the 5th time with cancer and prescribed a $2,500 pill that she could not afford to take, and nor would she have, frankly, as a woman of pride. My mom was a single mom, so growing up, it was just the two of us. And this idea that a pill could cost that much when my mother had Medicare, and so she, technically she had health insurance. And this is something that still haunts me, because I talk to people all around the country, especially in our district, who are facing such similar issues with high prescriptions. I talked to a couple the other day. They're paying $11,000 a month for their child's prescription. $11,000. I mean,
did your mother's Medicare cover that $2,500 pill?
No. So it was a pill for ulcerative colitis, and I don't know the name of the pill, but we've done obviously a bit of research on this because I've been talking about it for a while. And there's a range of the prices for these pills, anywhere from $200 up to $10,000 for these medications. And this was something that her doctor said to her, this is the one for you. And she said, I'm not going to take it. And that meant that she wasn't able to leave the house until she passed away in 2017.
I'm so sorry. I recently had surgery, and it has taken me to a place inside myself, a fierce place around the issue of Medicare for all, because I've thought about what I've gone through and not even been able to imagine what it would be to not have health insurance, or, as in the case of your mother, to be underinsured. It's not just an issue of the uninsured in America, but it's an issue of the underinsured. And of course, Medicare for all, the interesting thing about it is how the majority of Americans want it. So I don't even understand. I do understand. I understand because it's a corrupt system. I understand that it's because the health insurance companies and the big pharmaceutical companies would prefer that we not have Medicare for all. Will this be one of the issues that you take on as soon as you hit the ground when you're in Washington?
Absolutely. I think that we need people in Congress who understand the importance of this, and also who understand how much money we are spending as a federal government on healthcare right now. The fact that before the pandemic, we're spending 18% of GDP. We're projected to spend 24% over the next decade. That's gone up since the pandemic for sure. And yet our outcomes are so poor. And so for me, when, of course, we always get asked this question, like, how do we pay for it? Well, we're already paying for it. And there's a better system out there that isn't leaving healthcare in the hands of insurance companies, that actually provides freedom to people to be able to choose their provider, that doesn't drown people in copays, premiums, out-of-pocket costs, and that actually would provide medication that people can afford.
Also, I'm sorry.
No, that's it.
Oh, there are hundreds of billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars that the US government pays to do a lot of the research and development that then pharmaceutical companies and make their profits off of. You know, we keep saying, how do you pay for it? We need to ask as Americans, why are we paying for these things with our lives? We're paying with our lives. Your mother is a woman who raised children. Did you have siblings?
Mm-mm.
She raised a woman who obviously has it going on, who I'm sure she'd be so proud of if she were here today. If we're not investing in your mother, what are we doing? Why are we doing more to subsidize health insurance companies and big pharmaceutical companies than we are doing to subsidize the citizens of the United States? So I think it's a very beautiful thing that you will take the fierceness of your passion for your mother and those like her when you go to Congress, because that's where this needs to come from. These changes will emerge from the level of deep passion that has always been the source of the great changes in social justice movements in the United States. Tell me what else you're going to do when you get there. So we know you're going to be very much a part of the effort at Medicare for All. And tell me what else you're going to be interested in and that you're going to work on.
Well, I think anybody that's running for Congress right now needs to prioritize restarting our economy, getting people back to work safely. And so that just has to be the priority. I live in a district where, like anybody else in this country, you're seeing people who are facing potential evictions, losing their homes, small businesses that are going under. It's projected that 85% of small independent restaurants aren't going to make it through the year.
What do you want to do about that? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I actually already did something about it. So, and I'm not even there yet. I had a Congressman, Earl Blumenauer from Oregon, contact me and let me know that there was nobody from the Nebraska delegation. We have 3 congresspeople, they're all Republican men. None of them was willing to sign on to the Restaurants Act that would be a bill specifically targeting small independent restaurants. We held a media event, a Zoom event, invited the press, and that night, Don Bacon signed on to the Restaurants Act.
He's no fool. He's no fool. You're looking real good. You're actually standing for helping people, and he's not. Of course, too many Americans don't even realize, Cara, that in other countries, look at a country like England, where they're paying 80% of people's salary to help them through this pandemic. It is outrageous that people got only one $1,200 relief. We should be getting a direct cash relief. We already had, as we're all so aware at this point, we had 93 million people already living near poverty. We had 40% of Americans even before the pandemic who could not afford a $400 unexpected expenditure. We're not seeing on the nightly news the level of suffering that's going on right now. People being evicted, people are afraid of eviction, people's children are asking them, will we have to live in the car, mommy? People who honestly don't know how they're going to feed their children. Long lines of cars in front of food banks overwhelmed, people standing for hours in line hoping for a $30 food coupon. And it will take people like yourself who absolutely care about these things and will change it. So I hope that and many people have bills, of course, Ro Khanna, Tim Ryan, et cetera, a lot of people who are standing for the direct cash relief that people need. And of course, there's a larger conversation about UBI that would continue even beyond the pandemic. Do you support that?
Look, right now, I support anything that's going to get people, like you just mentioned, out of the situations they're in. And we need to look at the communities that are so significantly impacted right now. I've been working in the most blighted areas of our community for 12 years when I ran my nonprofit. What happens to those communities after this? This isn't the priority of Congress initially was bail out the large corporations. Let's help the wealthy people get back on their feet.
Absolutely. It's a corporate bailout. It's not a people bailout. I'd say for corporations, it's a bailout. It's to the people of the United States drop dead policy. So tell me more. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, and that's it. And so I'm deeply concerned about if we don't have people in Congress who are going to be willing to stand up and fight for people of color, fight for people living in poverty, fight for all these kids who have been traditionally left behind anyway, I am terrified for what happens next for them.
Well, and we should be terrified for our entire country. Let people know exactly. Is your district all of Omaha?
We are all of Omaha and the county that we're in, so it includes a few cities on the outskirts, and then part of the county to the south of us. We were gerrymandered in 2010,
Of course.
and so there's a bit of the county that's in our district as well. It's 98% urban suburban, which isn't necessarily what people think of when they think of Omaha, Nebraska. We have streetlights, we have ethnic food. We're a real city.
You know, I so experienced that in my travels, even before my presidential campaign. People have these weird stereotypes about America. You know, some people think there's the coasts, and then there's these Netherlands out there. And of course, I grew up in Texas, so I already knew that there's life beyond the coast, but there's hip life and very cool life and all of that kind of stuff. What about college expenses, free college universities, state universities and colleges? Where do you stand on that, Cara?
I had the honor of being publicly elected to our community college here in Omaha. It's Metropolitan Community College, one of the top 10 in the country. I think it's an amazing beacon of hope for people who never really thought that they would get a higher education. But I met too many students, too many people in our community who said that even the community college, which is by far the least expensive and best game in town, those barriers were too much for them, and that they were leaving the community college in debt while they were trying to start their own trade business or trying to get a union job. And so I do believe that, and actually the University of Nebraska has recently taken this upon them to, reduce tuition for anybody who earns under $60,000 a year, that they can go tuition free.
Excellent. Excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal model for the country. But in particular, I would like to start with making two-year college. I believe in debt-free tuition. And I think that it's just immoral that we see that we've got about 1.5 trillion. It's gone up since the pandemic, but that much student debt in this country. And I just don't think the federal government should profit off of that.
Absolutely. 1.5 trillion. So do you want to cancel all of them? What do you think we should do?
I think the cancellation thing is interesting. And I've talked to a number of people around the country that are getting behind this. The issue for me is like this thing in my heart where I'm thinking, okay, so there's the economic benefit, which we can't necessarily dispute, but then the idea of canceling student debt for wealthy people is, like, to me, I don't know that that's where our priority should be. So, but I want to go to Congress and fix our broken education system. And first and foremost, we got to get rid of Betsy DeVos.
Well, that'll happen as soon as Biden wins, may please God. And I know that your race specifically will have a great effect on the electoral college issue in Nebraska, so that if you win, it'll go very far towards taking Biden home on this. I want to stay though on the cancellation of college loans. I mean, first of all, just because parents have money doesn't necessarily mean the parents will pay for their college education. That's number one. And number two, when people seem so concerned about the rich person, it seems to me when you have such a decreased tax rate for major corporations, the richest individuals, when you have huge multi-billion-dollar corporate subsidies that go to industries such as oil and gas that already make billions of dollars. Isn't it interesting that only when it comes to college kids are we so worried about giving too much to the rich? I mean, it's so crazy. Our entire economic system is based on giving too much to the rich. But we give those college kids, we can't let those rich college kids take advantage of the system. Where do you think anyway, so I think showing up the hypocrisy of our system is sometimes very helpful.
Absolutely.
Now, when you get there, you will be voting on international issues as well. Do you have particular thoughts you'd like to share about international issues, the military-industrial complex, anything like that?
My biggest concern right now is the fact that the Trump administration has not filled major cabinet positions within the State Department, and that the State Department has been significantly defunded during this presidency. And it makes no sense to me because it significantly impacts our ability to engage in diplomacy around the world. And now look, as if anything Trump has done when it comes to foreign policy has been moving the country in the right direction, the fact that he has managed to alienate the vast majority of our allies while cozying up to dictators is unthinkable. That we watched him stand on an international stage with Putin and defend Putin over his own FBI. I mean, this is unbelievable stuff, but we have to fund the State Department. We have to have those positions filmed so that we're not defaulting to endless wars first.
Well, yes, the State Department gets $40 billion. the Defense Department gets $760 billion. And it's been a process by which our foreign policy is now led more by military efforts and commercial efforts. It's not an accident that even Trump's first Secretary of State was Rex Tillerson, who was an ex-CEO of Exxon, for God's sakes. And of course, the tragedy of what's happening in Yemen now, with the United States giving aerial support to Saudi Arabia's genocidal war against Yemen. And when Mike Pompeo was asked how the United States could do such an immoral thing, he said that sometimes we can have strategic relationships with people who don't share our values. We were talking about this last night. That just means you have no values. And that's what the State Department is now. Ronan Farrow's book, The War on Peace, is a very, very, very good one. I was reading, there was something in there that was an image really stayed with me. He said that it used to be that at international negotiations, the State Department diplomats would be at the table and the military people would be sitting around the end of the room. And today it's become the opposite. Too often you have the military people at the table and the State Department people on the other side of the room. But you know, Cara, this is an issue where there's a lot of differences among certain Democrats too. I mean, it was the Democratic House that gave Trump, you know, cut him the check for that $760 billion national defense authorization. So how are you gonna stand up to these people? What's your strategy? I guess you're gonna find your friends and allies, other progressives in Congress. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I've already started to do. I mean, look, I wasn't recruited by anybody to run for Congress. As you mentioned, I didn't necessarily have the support of my own party last time. They've come around, which I'm grateful for, but I intend to be an independent voice, unlike my opponent, who's voted 93% of the time with his party, with Donald Trump, even pledged to never disagree with Donald Trump. I mean,
oh my Lord. And yet the polls are showing that you are slightly ahead, which is why this is so important. But let's talk about the politics within the Democratic Party. So you're going to get there. And Nancy Pelosi, who I admire in many ways, but disagree with on a lot of things, she's really good at what she does. And she's gonna welcome you. And there's gonna be a lot of pressure for you to go along. It's gonna be a lot of pressure for you to go along with the established Democratic leadership agenda, which is a corporatist agenda. And you will be subtly threatened, won't necessarily be overtly spoken, that if you really want to get ahead, if you really want to get those assignments, if you really want to get those committee assignments that are so prestigious and cool and powerful, that you better not buck that system. What are you going to do?
I've already done it. I don't take corporate PAC money in my campaign. And that, I know, for some people is a sticking point from the Democratic establishment. And frankly, I think that it is a low bar when it comes to standing up to corruption, but at least it's a dividing line in the sand. And I'm not that candidate who's just saying it because it sounds good, but I've actually been offered corporate PAC money and rejected it in front of my campaign manager, who sat there like this going, what's she gonna do? Because you never know, right? But I think you bring up a good point. And the number one question that I get asked by people in the district is, how are you gonna avoid becoming corrupt? Which tells you what people think about our government right now.
I think also there are such subtle layers of corruption, insidious layers of corruption, which make it very easy for people to say, well, it's not really corrupt. It's really just making incremental change when we're living at a time when such fundamental change is necessary. I think whether we are in political leadership or not in political leadership right now, this is a time that demands courage of all of us. The courage to say what we really think and do what we really feel we need to do, as opposed to just going along with a system that clearly has taken us to a terrible place. I have a couple of people who would like to ask you questions from your district. Is that okay with you if I bring them up right now?
My favorite thing to do.
Okay, so there's a woman named Danielle Lacker, and if we could bring Danielle Lacker up to the screen. And Danielle, when you get here, unmute yourself. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you.
And are you in Omaha?
I'm in Omaha, Nebraska right now.
Okay, so you've got Cara Eastman here, and you can ask her anything you want.
Hi, Cara. Hi, Marianne.
Hi.
So I'm in Omaha, and I've been fascinated / horrified by the amount of Trump-style propaganda I get in the mail, and I see on TV, and of course online. And according to them, you are, Cara, an extreme radical devil person that wants to burn down your own city and like run around in its flames happily. It's really bizarre, the things that I've been seeing and getting. And I see your campaign keeps attacking your opponent based on his record and his poor policy and what you want to do. And there's straight up lies about you and about what you stand for. And so my question is, how do you contend with that much disinformation?
Well, first, we must be winning, right? And we are. And I think that it's a shame. I was actually asked this question today by a reporter. The question was, is civility dead? And I said, no, look, civility is not dead, but it's a shame that in order to keep a political position, somebody would defame the character of someone who wants to run against them.
What about that?
And right, well, and why not just put out policy differences? We don't agree on stuff, let's debate those issues. Marianne and I don't agree on everything, but I think we could have a civil debate and actually talk those things through and probably work together to fix a lot of problems together. So the idea that my opponent and the Republican Party feel like they have to attack me personally in order to win just shows you the state of the Republican Party. They don't have a platform to run on, so I guess this is what they do. And for me, I think it actually in some ways makes our campaign stronger, because we have so much support in the community locally, and it's making people mad. And I've had people reach out to me and say, actually, I don't agree with everything you stand for, but I hate the fact that you're being bullied on TV and by mail every day. And I hate the anti-Semitic racist tropes that are being used.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You're Jewish, Cara?
Well, so my father was Jewish. My mother's Catholic.
And they're coming at you with anti-Semitic stuff?
Well, it's like showing pictures of me with Bernie Sanders and AOC and saying, she's going to burn down the city with her friends. And, these are clear attacks on women, attacks on people of color, attacks on people in the Jewish community. And it's by design. I mean, we actually just had somebody in our community who's running for the state legislature, a woman running. Her opponent put out a mail piece and put the wrong woman on the mail piece. And the woman he selected is a Latina woman, and the woman who's running is not. And I mean, so now this woman is getting attacked because people think she's the candidate. I mean, this is the state of the Republican Party in Nebraska right now. It's disgraceful.
But once again, it means a lot that you're ahead in the polls. So the question becomes, has this country had enough of this? Will the country reject this kind of politics? And that's why it's so important that you're running. Any other questions or any other comments from you, Danielle, about what any of that means and what your experience of all that is and what your feeling about it is?
I think that was the perfect answer, and it was actually really inspiring and made me feel a lot better about it.
Does it feel to you, being there and talking to people, that the energy is behind Cara and that it's happening and the people are going to put out the kind of energy that we need put out for this?
I've never seen so many yard signs in my life, and
Yes.
I've lived all over the country.
And it says a lot.
It is like a Cara bonanza when you drive down the street here. And then like Biden and Cara, and these huge signs everywhere. And so that on the internet, sometimes it's hard because you're in your own echo chamber. But when you drive down the street, I mean, that's what's really there. And there are a lot of Cara signs out there.
I'm so happy for you, Cara. So listen, everybody, that's the word, that's the sign. So this is when you're supposed to go to eastmanforcongress.com and please push that donate button. That's the way you can put up your yard sign, eastmanforcongress.com. Those yard signs cost money. All radio ads cost money. Television ads cost money. Yes, we need public funding of federal campaigns. Yes, we need to overturn Citizens United. Yes, because that's not going to happen anytime soon, given the current and soon to be even worse makeup of the Supreme Court. Probably, we're not going to be able to overturn it. We're going to need a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. But you know what? In the meantime, what we have is ourselves. And Bernie Sanders, among others, has proven that it doesn't have to be a lot of money. It can be small donations, as Cara has said here quite a bit on in this conversation already. She does not take corporate PAC money. And so we need you. So please, no matter how much or how little. What is the the maximum on a congressional race, maximum donation?
$2,800.
2,800 also, that's the presidential also. But we'll take your 5, we'll take your 10, we'll take your 20, we'll take whatever you feel moved in your heart. So thank you for telling us, Danielle, about the signs, because, you know, people want to back a winner. People want to feel like, and I'm telling you, take my word for it, and take Kara's word for it and Danielle's word for it. And also it's the sort of chatter in political circles. She's really close. She can make it. She can make it. So please, let's help her here tonight. Danielle, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cara, we have another gentleman who'd like to ask you another question. Is that okay with you?
Of course.
Okay, his name is Dan McAllister, or McAllister, not sure which. Dan, come on and join us. Hi, you're upside down. You're to the side. Hi, how are you? Unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Unmuting, there we go.
Hi.
Hi. So here's my question. It kind of parlays with weirdly what you were just speaking about. But how do you contend and plan to deal with the power that these corporations have on our elections specifically? You know, you were talking about constitutional amendment, but yeah, as I watch TV, there's all these super PAC ads saying similar to what Danielle said. How do you combat that if when you get to Congress?
Well, I think obviously some of those things are like, you know, I'm endorsed by End Citizens United for a reason, right? That I fundamentally believe that law changed so much in our country, and the idea that corporations are viewed as people and that they're given a voice in electoral politics is just a fundamental threat to our democracy that needs to be changed. But as Marianne said, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon, especially if we get a new Supreme Court justice appointed by Trump. So there are ways that we can do this. And I think the step in the right direction is for candidates to reject corporate PAC money. It's a shame that Republicans haven't glommed onto this. They clearly like the system that benefits them. And let's look at yeah, but let's look at how that works. I mean, even for somebody like me who I didn't start off in this wealthy, and what I was told by consultants, the only measure of worth for a candidate like myself is how much money can you raise. And so they say, pull out your Rolodex first. What's that? But and ask your friends and family for money, which I did. I asked my nonprofit friends for $50 and they gave it to me, which I was incredibly grateful for. But there are so many barriers to entry when it comes to a new candidate trying to get into this system. And then to say, I'm going to reject corporate PAC money, what I heard from people was, well, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And yet I outraised my opponent last time in 2018, and we just outraised him in the last quarter by $200,000 with an average donation of $15. And you do that through hard work. That's the way you do this.
Hey, everybody, you heard what she just said, eastmanforcongress.com. You know, people like Cara versus her opponent represent two starkly different visions for America and for America's future. And one is deeply aligned with Donald Trump. Her opponent is deeply aligned with Donald Trump. That's why Trump has endorsed him. If you like what Trump is doing, if you like where he's taking the country, then that's your right. But if you don't, and you want to see America turn in a completely different direction, then I hope that you'll go to eastmanforcongress.com right now and do everything that you can to help Cara so that she can use these next 3 days or whatever it is to knowing that she has the kind of material support that she needs to take it home. I think that some states, Cara, are doing some pretty some pretty imaginative things. Washington State, et cetera, what are they calling freedom dividends, giving $100 to each citizen so that they can spend the money on supporting candidates. I mean, there are some creative ways we can actually put money in the hands of people, right, to make people more players. But I think I think the Democrats are just as responsible for this as the Republicans are, the way they too often look to candidates who either have money or can more easily raise money. And they think that's the way to go. And that's one segment of American society, those who have created wealth. This is not to disparage those who have created wealth, but simply to say that some of the most valuable members of our society are not in professions that are known for wealth creation. What about a teacher? What about a scientist? I mean, so many things that people do. They're just as smart, they're just as wise. And sometimes, for the very reason that they don't have all that money, they're a little bit closer to people's experience. We need them in Congress. And what has happened, of course, is that the people who are now hijacked by the corporate interests in order to do their bidding because of their donations and serve their profit margins rather than the American people, the truth is that the people who are giving them money are the people they're sort of more comfortable with. It's the people they hang out with. It's the people they go to cocktail parties with. They don't meet necessarily the people that you meet who are worried about lead poisoning in their homes and what that's going to do with their children. You know, you were talking early, Cara, about your mother's cancer. And when you're talking about lead poisoning, I think Americans are waking up to how many environmental toxins are such a factor in cancer. We need more than a healthcare system. We need to take care of the environmental policies, the food policies, the chemical policies that we know more and more are causative elements in all of this. And we need people who, like yourself, who are going to be there, who live it, who see it. It's so impressive. Do you want to tell us a little more about the work you've done with the lead poisoning prevention and with those fair housing, the people that you've been working with in Omaha?
Yeah, absolutely. And just Dan, to your point, I just had a meeting before this with the Teachers Association here. And the question that they asked was, will we be able to get into your office in DC to meet with you? And I said, well, of course, like you would have an open door with me. You'll have my cell phone. And what I realized is that there's never been a candidate in this district. There's never been a member of Congress
who would meet with the teachers.
Who has rejected corporate PAC money. So they prioritize those meetings with lobbyists,
of course,
and corporations over teachers. It's just mind-boggling.
No, the teachers don't represent financial leverage. We're not a government of the people, by the people, for the people right now. We're a government of, by, and for these corporations, multinational corporations. And these people in Congress do more to serve their short-term profit than to serve the people. That's a blunt way to put it, but it's the true way to name it. Mm-hmm. And so you, Dan, and asking Cara, that's what we should be asking every candidate. So let me ask you a question, Dan. Did Cara give you an adequate response? Do you believe her?
I do believe her because she's walking the walk. And I think there are candidates, Democrats sometimes, sadly, that talk a big game but don't live up to it. And I think by the stances she's taking, it feels good to me.
Where do you live, Dan?
Omaha right now. Previously in Los Angeles, but
What do you do? What do you do?
Well, actually, I do a number of things. I kind of work in the political space, and I did nonprofit work for most of my career. So yeah, worked with kids in gangs, worked with kids with autism. So just a number of different things. But yeah, it's kind of been a mixed bag all the time.
You know, Cara, when you talk about things like what Dan was just talking about, children in gangs, young people in gangs, young people with autism, you're talking about young people's exposure to lead poisoning, et cetera. As I said before, it seems to me that America's children are a greatly neglected and underserved population. You know, just the fact that you're not old enough to vote doesn't mean that you're not a full-on citizen of the United States. And the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness should be yours as much as it is anyone else's. One of the things I've thought and written about quite a lot in the last few years is that the American economic system was designed before women had a voice in the public sphere. And raising children was just seen as women's work. Well, we have a voice now, but I don't think we're totally using it as we might, which is why I feel so strongly about more women in Congress. And ultimately, I always say we need a mother in the White House, and you can take that however you want. But I do hope, and obviously based on everything that you've already done with your life, taking care of America's children at a much higher level. It shouldn't even be seen as a charity issue. It should be seen as a justice issue. And we see so much now. There has been, even in the last 10 to 15 years, there has been so much research done that shows about brain development in the first 8 years of life. If we front end our resources in the direction of America's children, we will go so far to providing a powerful future. So when those teachers are in your office, I know that I, and obviously people like Dan, there will be so much power behind you saying, yes, 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 the more you do to stand up for America's children. And thank you for what you've done, Dan, also.
Of course.
Thank you. All right, Cara, I've talked quite a bit here tonight. I just want to take this time that's left for you to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Bring up whatever issue you want to talk about. I think the people have gotten a good sense of your heart here tonight, the policy positions that are important to you. Where are you on Green New Deal?
So there, again, I had a great opportunity to meet the people who designed the Green New Deal and sat down and went through it with them. And it's a shame because the Republican Party has done such a good job of vilifying this idea. And I've actually worked locally in our community creating green, healthy housing. So I understand that investment in a community can have a ripple effect when it comes to increasing the tax base for that community, energy, lowering utility bills for families, especially when people living in poverty pay such a disproportionate amount of their income on utility bills, making the home more comfortable, and also just keeping kids safe from things like lead. This is all local work, right? So you actually produce windows locally. You hire people locally to do this work. It's not something you outsource to another country, although we certainly need immigrant labor in this country. Otherwise, we're going to collapse. But this is something that's a passion of mine. And so the idea of creating a green economy, a green workforce that also has the incredible benefit of combating the climate crisis, like this to me it's a net win for everybody. And it's a shame that people like my opponents who have been climate deniers are in charge he touts his accomplishments when Nebraska could be a leader in wind and solar and renewables, clear leader, when there's already work that's been done locally where I've seen where it's done very well and also where it could do better. And so that's the experience and expertise that I want to bring to Congress.
I want to ask you a question about that because I think the heartland states are kind of a mystery to a lot of people. You just said that Nebraska could be a leader in wind and solar. Would you please explain that? Because I think a lot of people probably went, why Nebraska? Would you explain that?
Yeah, so Nebraska is a unique place. I'm originally from Chicago, that's kind of known for its gray skies. We have sun here almost every day in Nebraska, and we are an incredibly windy state. And the prairie plains there's a lot of wind, and we should be working towards leading the country when it comes to the investments that we could be making, especially for our farming communities. So my district is mostly urban suburban, but 1 in 4 jobs in our state are related to our agricultural economy, and we're all intertwined. There's no separation, especially when it comes to things like our agriculture, access to nutritious foods. There are a number of places in my district that are food deserts. So we're all intertwined, and we need to save our farmers. We have 90% of our farms are family owned, and they need help. They've been decimated by flooding, by tariffs, and now by COVID.
And of course, by big ag.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the difference in the situation that farmers find themselves in today versus what was true for them before the 1980s is staggering. Mm-hmm. I heard such sad stories throughout my campaign, how before the 1980s, if a farmer wasn't having a good year, the local banker was likely to say, we understand, your yield wasn't great this year, you'll pay us back next year. But once the big agricultural conglomerates got so much power and the banks became in their pockets rather than local servants to the people, then people were really forced to give up their power and in a very real way, give up their farms. And of course, what it's done to the topsoil and the land and the erosion. And I just find it so exciting, Cara, that you're ahead in this race. I don't want anybody listening to me to become complacent when I say that. I mean, it's leaning towards Cara, but this is why we need your donations. Once again, eastmanforcongress.com. But what it says about America, I think people have really wrong-minded ideas about what's going on out there in America. I was reading an article in the Washington Post about how Americans are not as conservative as the elite, even among the Democrats, think they are. When you look at something like Medicare for all, the majority of Americans want it. So you're doing something so important because you're standing for these progressive values and showing that they work in state like Nebraska.
Right. Well, and what's great about when I think about progressive policies is that they all are supported by the vast majority of Americans.
Exactly.
And so these are popular with the American public, and they have the added benefit of saving the federal government money.
Yes. I mean, I was on Andrew Yang's podcast the other day, and he said, well, it's hard to convince these people to vote for these things because they're afraid their constituents won't support them. I'm like, why would people not support a policy that puts money in their pocket? Why would people not support a policy that gives them free health care? Why would people not support a policy that lifts the burden of these college loans? Try, give people a chance to be good. Give people a chance to be smart. That's why I admire you so much, Cara. You're not pussyfooting around the truth as you see it. You're not going there to compromise what you really think about this or compromise what you really think about that. And when it didn't win your seat the first time, you just came back to do it some more. So I just think you're fabulous. And I hope everybody will go to eastmanforcongress.com. Once again, back to you, Cara. Anything else you want to talk about?
Thank you. I think what you said before about women running is really important, and I am running as a woman, and well,
I really don't have a choice. I mean, these days you actually do have a choice, but I think it's a good choice that you're making.
Thank you. But I would be the first woman elected to serve this district, and I think that that's really important because my opponent has been so bad on women's issues. He voted against the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. I used to run.
Who would vote against
the
reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act?
Yep.
Overtly damaging, suppressive, oppressive, punishing towards women. I'm sure you use that. I'm sure you mention that pretty much every time, right?
Well, it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart. My first job out of graduate school, I started a domestic violence program with a police department. I ran a domestic violence shelter, and I've seen the way that women get treated in our criminal legal system when it comes to domestic violence. This stuff is critical for the lives of women and children and men around the country, and to vote against it is despicable.
You mentioned violence. And of course, we can't have a meaningful conversation about politics today without talking about racial justice issues. Thoughts to share?
Yeah, I've been fighting for racial, social, and environmental justice my entire career, from running domestic violence programs. I started a national volunteer program for people with ALS. I ran a homeless shelter and transitional housing program. And my work at Omaha Healthy Kids Alliance was centered around communities of color in Omaha, because what we saw was that there are a couple of zip codes in our city where children, and in particular Black children and Latino children, are continuously poisoned by lead in the same homes, and then expected to graduate and to function in society, when we know that lead creates IQ deficits, behavioral problems, and even criminal behavior later in life. So this is the stuff that I've been doing my entire career, and it will take that perspective to Congress. I'm really proud to have been endorsed by 50 Black leaders in Omaha as a slate, and I just recently got the endorsement of the Congressional Black Caucus.
Oh, good for you. Good for you, Cara. Good for you. And of course, as a person in Congress, you will have power. Black Lives Matter is the largest social justice movement in the history of the United States, and yet there has not been one legislative change as a result of it, because the Trump forces have been able to so demonize. God help us if we don't deal with this issue now. Mm-hmm. I think when you look at the entire arc of American history, we have made obviously great strides from the days of slavery, but we've also in the last few decades actually moved backwards with mass incarceration, so much disparity in criminal sentencing for people who are Black people as well as Latino people in the United States. So I certainly hope that you will be a very, very vocal champion for the kinds of changes that we need, and to really allow people to know. Of course, you just said that you've already gotten that kind of support from people of color in Nebraska. And that's a very, very cool thing. There was a time when I was growing up that states like Nebraska were known for those kinds of stances. It's only been a relatively new phenomenon that there's been this solid streak of red around states that people now associate with those conservative values, but which when I was growing up were actually known for their stances in a much more expansive direction. I feel so good about your candidacy. I so hope that people will go to eastmanforcongress.com and support Cara. This is the type of person we need in Congress. I hear too much cynicism. Cynicism is just an excuse for not helping. And I want everybody to hopefully really consider the fact that we as citizens had a lot to do with things getting this bad. Too many of us were disengaged. Too many of people didn't really show up at midterms, didn't really think much about the down-ballot races, certainly didn't think about our state races and our local races as much as we might have. And I think a lot of people have awoken to what a pickle we're in now. And the reason we're doing the down-ballot summit is because, as you can see tonight, meeting Cara, there's so many wonderful people running. There's so much genius in this country. There's so much goodness in this country. There's so much solid conscience and dignity in this country. But that goodness and decency and intelligence needs to be in Washington. Some of the most regressive forces in this country hold some of the greatest positions of power. And that will not change unless we, the people, step in now. We all know about how powerful these corporations are, but they're not as powerful as we are when we vote en masse. And until we have public funding of federal campaigns, when we put our money where our mouth is. And as I've also said, if you like what you heard tonight, if you agree with me that Cara is a fabulous woman that would truly serve our country in the way that would make us think we have hope, there's a way we can change things, then whether it's $5, $10, $20, whatever matches your heart, I hope that you will give. I hope that you will give. And I think it's pretty clear, given the fact that she's doing as well as she is in the polls already. She knows how to manage her money well and how to run a good campaign. She almost made it last time. Everybody's saying she can make it this time, and let's you and I be part of what helps her do that. Cara, I think you're great. I wish you the very, very best. I have such admiration for you. I know what it takes. I know it's not always easy out there, although I also know it's exhilarating. And I hope you felt tonight that you were surrounded by friends and given a chance to make your case. Anything else you want to say before we call it a night?
Well, just thank you. It's such an honor to meet you, and obviously followed your campaign as well. And I think I mean, you know this, but you did some stuff that nobody had done before, brought some issues to light, especially around racial justice, especially around environmental injustices that I think really needed to be out there. And that's one of the things that I feel inspired by, that it's always, this is a tough district. We did give an electoral college vote to Obama in 2008. We can do that again with Biden and Harris this time, but it's tough. And I've been here before, so I know how tough it is. But to me, I'm grateful and honored to have this opportunity to be able to put these issues forward. And so if I push my opponent into signing onto a bill that helps small independent restaurants, then I've already done a good job. But most importantly to me, this is about the what's happening in our country and getting us back on track and then progressing us even forward. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, the issues that we face today are not the fault of one party. They're the fault of a collective movement to favor corporate greed over working families. And it's time to end that model.
I appreciate your passion, and my deepest hope is that you have more than passion, that you get the power to back it up. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. To all of you, I hope you'll join us tomorrow night. We will be talking to Donna Imam in Texas. And oh, I'm sorry, Wendy took Cara away. I'm sorry that Cara got taken away, but I want, God, I didn't get to say my final goodbye, but whatever. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope you'll be with us tomorrow night at the same time, 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. East Coast. I hope you will once again go to eastmanforcongress.com. Do what your heart tells you to do. Let's help this woman get there. We can make America so much better. And as we all know, it's time. God bless you all. Thank you so much.